Good morning to those of you who are just joining us. We'll wait a moment for everybody to get online, and then we'll begin. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We'll just get started in a moment. Good morning, and welcome to the latest installment of Mazzetti's Bending the Climate Curve lecture series. I'm Christina Vernon-Sanborn, Sustainability Practice Leader here at Mazzetti, and I'll serve as the moderator for today's panel. Today, we're privileged to host 3 different health systems who have recently secured the Joint Commission's Sustainable Healthcare Certificate program, and they will each share their experiences. A bit of housekeeping. Today's event qualifies for one AIA CEU. If you didn't provide your AIA number when registering, please send it to info@mazzetti.com and we'll get it taken care of. We will hold questions until after all 3 hospitals have made their presentations, but you can submit your questions at any time via the Q&A function of the webinar. We encourage you to put your questions in as they occur to you while people are talking. Today's session is being recorded. All right, so now I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then I'll turn it over to our first panelist to present. So first up, we have Tina Costello, who serves as the Director of Organizational Project Management and Regulatory Affairs at Valley Children's Healthcare in Madera, California. Tina combines strategic leadership with analytical acumen in her 16-year tenure at Valley Children's and plays a pivotal role in leading initiatives that enhance organizational effectiveness and patient care. Tina oversees all regulatory affairs, ensuring compliance with industry standards and governmental regulations, leveraging her educational background and project management skills to drive impactful change in the healthcare setting. She holds a professional certification in project management and leads the implementation of key programs and projects aligned with Valley Children's strategic objectives, including sustainability efforts. With her is Kelly Dyer, also from Valley Children's Hospital. Kelly Dyer serves as the Vice President of Facilities, Construction, and Supply Chain at Valley Children's Healthcare, also in Madera, California. With a robust background in hospital operations, she oversees strategic initiatives in facilities management, construction projects, and supply chain optimization to ensure the highest standards of operational excellence. In her role, Kelly leverages her expertise in healthcare management and project oversight to support Valley Children's Healthcare in meeting its mission of providing exceptional pediatric care. Her leadership is characterized by a commitment to innovation, sustainability, and fostering creative relationships and collaborative relationships across departments to achieve organizational goals. Next up, we'll have Terry DeFina from Stanford Healthcare. Terry is a sustainability leader, change agent, program builder, and mentor. She has expertise in corporate sustainability, environmental health and safety, sustainable energy management, and facilities management. As an eternal optimist and relationship builder, Terry is mission-driven to engage and inspire action in business leaders to improve the collective burden placed on this planet. As Director of Sustainability at Stanford Healthcare, Terry is working at the forefront of healthcare's climate action movement as hospitals and industry partners tackle decarbonization and climate resilience. Most recently, Terry led the Joint Commission's Sustainable Healthcare Certification preparations for Stanford Healthcare. And last up, we have Kyle Tafuri from Hackensack Meridian Health. Kyle's the Vice President of Sustainability at Hackensack Meridian Health. He's not just a leader in healthcare sustainability, he's a visionary. For over a decade, Kyle has been instrumental in weaving sustainability into the very fabric of Hackensack Meridian Health, transforming the health system into an industry leader in environmental responsibility. Under Kyle's leadership, Hackensack Meridian Health hospitals were the first in the country to receive Joint Commission Sustainability Certification. The flagship hospital, Hackensack University Medical Center, has been recognized as a top 25 green hospital by Practice Green Health for 10 consecutive years. All of HMH's hospitals are in the process of implementing a 30 megawatts of on-site solar and battery storage, truly the most of any health system in the United States on site. His dedication to energy, green buildings, sustainable food practices, waste reduction, and responsible purchasing has set a new standard for healthcare institutions nationwide. I hope you'll join me in appreciating this great panel we've put together today to talk about the Joint Commission's Sustainable Healthcare Certification. And we'll start with Kelly and Tina from Valley Children's. You're up.
Great. Thanks, Christina. I appreciate that introduction. It's great to be here, especially with the other panelists, and we appreciate their collaboration and help as we achieved our certification from the Joint Commission. We actually called Kyle at his hospital, and he was very helpful to us. So I want to appreciate his efforts. So this is a picture of our hospital, and we're located in Central California. We're a 358-bed all pediatric hospital and level 2 trauma center. So if we can go to the next slide. Today, our learning objectives that I'll go over is how we developed our sustainability initiative and how we made it meaningful from the bottom up. And then understanding the role of how important it is to have the right stakeholders engaged as you start your sustainability journey and how you continue and you gain external support through our partners. And then lastly, my colleague Tina Costello will go through and understand and demonstrate the requirements of the Joint Commission Sustainable Healthcare Program and pretty much lay it out on how we achieve that certification. Our next slide, Troy. Our certification was actually the first in California for our California hospital, and we were the second children's hospital in the nation. So we're pretty proud of that. And so hopefully today you guys will learn how we were able to achieve that and how it's very attainable from a perspective when it's laid out. The first thing is you have to develop a meaningful goal and a sustainability initiative that everyone can be a part of. So for us, that started with a strategic vision, which was taken and approved by our executive leadership and our board of trustees. We wanted to gain their support initially. And then we obviously needed our regulatory and organizational project management team to help us put the framework around this program. And we developed a governance structure, which we'll go over. We, 2 years ago, in 21, we engaged with Mazzetti to help us with our greenhouse gas measurement and inventory summary report. So that was really the first step in our in measuring our greenhouse gases. We signed the White House Climate Pledge, and we began our work from there. Next slide. So these are our pillars, our energy strategy pillars that really helped us build the foundation for what we were doing with our electricity and water use and natural gas. So we wanted to have an operational resilience to mitigate any unplanned or planned or unplanned power interruptions. And where we're located in California, there are a lot of wildfires. We are located in a very dry area in Central California. We're actually a very large rural hospital that's surrounded by basically farmland and grass. And there are significant threats of fire. So we wanted to be more resilient on our own to protect us against those threats. Obviously, every hospital has a financial efficiency goal, and that was part of this as well, that we knew we had to spend money to save money. And so we've made some investments that you'll see. And then we wanted our environmental sustainable to be meaningful to our staff and really to live what we've signed to do, which is to decarbonize and get to zero emissions. So next slide. So I talked about our governance structure, and this is really how we start building our stakeholders and why it's so important to get it from the ground up. And so on this graph, I'm going to start at the bottom with our Sustainability Stewardship Program, which is our green team. This is really the team that's boots on the ground at Valley Children's. And we have a very large cross-sectional team of staff that's engaged with our physicians, even our visitors. So we're implementing this sustainable best practices, and they're really leading the way of our journey. That group then reports up through the Environment of Care Committee, and they have a sustainability initiative within the Environment of Care, and they report out on a regular basis, just like any of the other plans under the Environment of Care Committee. And then we have a strategic group, which we call, it's made up of executive leaders, and some directors that are responsible, for example, the director of facilities, the director of construction, sits on this group, and also our chief operating officer and our chief strategy officer. And so we talk about the decisions that we're making and where we're going, and we have a management plan around that, which then goes up to another executive leadership team, and we make it a strategic priority for the hospital annually. So it's just as important as how we take care of children. And then our board of trustees has also been supportive of our work and given us the financial resources to be able to do the work. Next slide. Again, we really counted and leaned on Mazzetti and found them to, they're an excellent partner. They didn't ask me to say this, but I really, through their expertise, through Christina and her team, it was invaluable to us. So we were in our second year of collecting our greenhouse gas emissions, and this year we added tier 3 emissions, which is a real eye-opener for me, having a supply chain background, since there's a lot of work to be done there. But I really appreciated the help of Mazzetti, and they actually participated in our interview with the Joint Commission for our sustainability certification. So I appreciate that team. Next slide. And then the stakeholder engagement, what I talked about, it's so important. And so building our executive leadership, I report as Vice President of Facilities, I report to the Chief Operating Officer. She's very involved in this work. And also, like I said, our Chief Strategy Officer, and actually all of our senior executives. And this is an initiative that we have that we talk about weekly on where we're at. And then the support from my regulatory peer here, Tina Costello, has been invaluable, setting us up for success. And then again, our green team, which we did have we have wide acceptance. People are very excited about the program. They want to help, they want to recycle, they want to reduce. So it's been a really good synergy from our team. And then lastly, our third-party vendors have really been important for our sustainability journey. So Troy, if you go to the next slide. Okay, it's coming. There's another slide where I talk about our vendors and our partnerships. But really, this is the responsibility of the green team that I've already talked about, and how we're getting involved in setting up recycling and recycled waste, composting, reusing where we can. We have an office supply recycle program. We're doing a lot. And we're actually being recognized for the work that we had been doing. So that's one thing that I would say, that you have to recognize the success that you've already had and share it with the whole team, because people are excited to use less paper and less water and less even oxygen gas, nitrogen gas. So it's been good for us. And then the next slide. These are the partners that I'm talking about. Like I said, we did sign the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services pledge for healthcare organization. And we are also partnered up with the Better Climate Challenge, and they are helping us through some of our reduction waste and other greenhouse gas reduction strategies in our facilities, and how we can be better stewards of our water. Of course, Mazzetti, and then our group purchasing organization, we're part of Vizient, and our hospital actually won the preferred purchasing program for using the most sustainable products for our sourcing. So that was last year that we won that. And then, of course, we partner with Medline, our medical surgical distributor, which is very important in your sustainability journey when you're looking at your tier 3 or scope 3 admissions. We are doing an RFP for our energy and our gas right now, and we're partnering with Mazzetti on that and using Ecom Energy. And so far, it's proving to be very competitive, and we're really glad that we went that way. Next slide. And I'll let Tina Costello take it from here.
So I think the key around everything that Kelly had shared is really being able to demonstrate it when you're sitting in front of the surveyor, to be able to sequentially go through the process. We identified the 3 elements and established our process owners, or our leads, to really represent each element. I think it was really important for us to strategically engage our stakeholder groups to participate in the presentation with the Joint Commission. So we shared energy with natural gas, purchase electricity, and waste as our 3 elements. We regularly scheduled meetings with these leads to really work on developing performance improvement plans. And then We did a full assessment of the reviewed and analyzed all of the standards. They're very straightforward. There's no tricks in there. I think that's a key for you to remember. And then the most important thing is really developing your supporting documents, because that is the what you need to demonstrate to the Joint Commission as you go forward. And then it's really, as Kelly had shared, be proud of what you've done and share your sustainability journey and what you've done and what you've accomplished to date and where you want to go and improve in the future. So next slide, Troy. Thank you. So the way we structured our presentation to the Joint Commission is that we really aligned everything under our energy strategy pillars. As Kelly had shared with you, we set an operating goal for each element and identified what we wanted to do, is what we wanted to achieve. The key is that you have your initial supporting data to hit that goal. And you can see kind of the data sources that we use to help us frame this specific element. And then what we established and put in place is really a work plan around the improvement work for us with regards to our energy and our purchased electricity. Really, the strategy is around some of the construction and facility improvement activities that we're doing as an organization. And one of the things that the journey that we are on is that we are going to be completing our microgrid solar field that we're going to be implementing. So next slide, Troy. And this is our microgrid that we are actually going to be breaking ground here shortly. This is going to really help us continue to improve from an energy perspective. Next slide, Troy. For our purchased electricity element, similarly, we aligned our energy with our energy pillar. We set our operating goal of increasing our green energy with our renewable state mandate. So California is anything, and I think Terry can relate to all of the wonderful California regulations we need to hit as well. Again, aligned our improvement work as well as our data sources for this. So those are all in alignment, and we really went sequentially through this process in presenting to the Joint Commission. Next slide. And finally, with our waste, reducing and reusing and recycling is our motto here at Valley Children's. And again, we really did align our operating goal around landfill diversion rate and really looking at, as Kelly had said, our environmentally preferred sourcing through our Vizient partner. And we partner with them on our strategic sourcing improvement work. And then really for us as an organization, focusing on and emphasizing recycling, and composting is another California regulation that we need to comply with. So we're continuing to reinforce that with our teams. And then lastly, as I had mentioned earlier, developing your supporting documents is a key. And with the standards, we went through and identified all of the standards that require the documentation. And this is just kind of a little bit of a checklist of things that we put together as it pertained to the documents that we provided. The key element that you're going to need to make sure that you do is that you have a written strategic plan around this work, as well as approval of it in minutes. So I think that's really, really important as you begin your journey. We created 2 key documents. We have an environmental sustainability operations plan. So we have that management plan, which Kelly had shared. We present at the Environment and Care Committee as part of any management plan that you need to have the effectiveness review of. And then we also established an energy management plan. So those are key plans that we really implemented. And then for our data, obviously our Mazzetti inventory report is critical in this process. We also engaged Mazzetti as part of our presentation to engage and present the data for us. And then we do have obviously work plans around all of the elements that we've established. We told our journey. So this is our journey slide. I'm not going to really go through it, but we started back in 2022 with our engaging Mazzetti on our inventory report, and then all the way up through our sustainability site visit with the Joint Commission. So it was our journey as of to date. Next. And then really, I think it's really important that we celebrate the work that we've done. We had our first Earth Day festival at Valley Children's, and these are members of our green team that really kind of got on board with us. And we started small. We're going to build traction, and we're going to make it bigger next year. So wanted to just share our success from that perspective. And that's all we have, I think. Yep.
Thank you so much, Tina and Kelly. We really appreciate you telling your story. All right, next up we have Terry DeFina, who's going to talk about Stanford Healthcare.
Great, thank you so much. It's always great to hear other systems stories. I'm so excited to be on this panel. So let me just start with a little brief overview of Stanford Healthcare's size. I think when undergoing a certification or any kind of initiative, I think it's important to see the variety of systems that have accomplished the goal already, and to see how that relates to your systems back home. So Stanford Healthcare is a level 1 trauma center, the only one between San Francisco and San Jose. We do about 2 million outpatient visits, and we do about 30,000 inpatient discharges every year. We have 604 licensed beds on our main campus. And while I'm super proud of a lot of these figures, I will say that because of this certification, the marketing and communications teams are going to be adding our sustainable healthcare certification emblem to this one-sheeter, which is used at all of the executive presentations that all of our executives do for a variety of their own associations. So I'm going to go over a little bit of our goals and our journey. We have committed to the Health and Human Services pledge, and in 2030 we are on track to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions scopes 1 and 2 by 50%. We have added to that an EUI, an energy use intensity goal of reducing that by 25% by the same year. And we added a zero waste goal, so 90% diversion by 2030. None of those are going to be easy, but we're up for the challenge, and we are continuing to challenge, all of the operational groups around the organization to make progress in these areas. And of course, the zero emissions by 2050, that includes scope 3. So lots of work to do there. We have committed to sustainability on multiple levels. We joined the pledge in 2022. Our board of directors committed the organization to carbon neutrality through a board affirmation statement. We have also an integrated strategic plan that was just renewed for the next 5 years, and it has, for the first time ever, environmental citizenship as one of the strategic items on the plan. This plan is the highest level of strategic planning that Stanford Healthcare and Stanford Medicine does. So we're very excited to be, not only was our work validated and supported, but celebrated. And the organization is really committed to it for the long term. And also the short term. Finally, the last image on this chart is our annual ops plan. And so this is what we use to prioritize our work every year. And I'm proud to say that we are going into our 3rd year of having sustainability on this annual ops plan. So a lot of work has been done by our Chief Sustainability Officer and others at the executive level to integrate sustainability into the strategic fabric of the organization. Our programs can really be grouped into these 5 on the screen here: greenhouse gas emissions, energy management, waste, water, and chemicals of concern. We're not tackling all of them equally right now. We're really focusing on the GHGs, energy and waste, and the others will come a little bit later. But we like to remind people that you can boil the ocean of sustainability topics into these 5 areas and create a plan for each of them. This is our framework for sustainability. You can see we use this on all of our presentations to simplify our goals into one image. You can see the goals around the outside of this arc, and then within the arc are all of the working groups and all of the employee engagement efforts that make those goals attainable and able to be communicated in understandable pieces. So with that kind of laying the foundation, we were aware of the Joint Commission's certification, in late 2023 as they were kind of launching their process. And we applied in early 2024, settling our earliest window available a few months later. And for one, tips and tricks regarding this process, I would say that there are resources on the Joint Commission website. For example, there's a sample agenda for your survey, so for your review day. And you can actually go through that agenda and you can revise it as you see applicable to your organization. So you can kind of tailor it and spend more time on what you want the reviewer to see and less time on areas that you think you'll move quickly through. That was a critical component for Stanford Healthcare, because one of the advantages that we saw in this certification process was the engagement with our senior leadership. So in our opening session, we decided to commit a good amount of time. We committed 90 minutes to going through our sustainability program at the kind of highest level. And we literally had 15 executives, each one presenting about 5 minutes or less on the piece of the sustainability program that they owned. So we had our supply chain vice president do 5 minutes on how supply chain owns some of our scope 3. We had our planning, design, and construction team talk about how we're building out sustainable building standards. And it was a really exciting way for us to engage our leaders and at the same time demonstrate to the Joint Commission that this is not something that is a side hobby or something that is, just, going to sit on a shelf. It's actually integrated throughout the organization. So I would say that take advantage of adjusting the sample agenda to the needs of your organization. The other tip I would give is to engage your regulatory affairs office early and often. I'll let Kyle talk to that one because his was engaged a lot more than mine was, but because they felt included, they really wanted to engage and support and do whatever they needed to do to make us successful. And again, they're not subject matter experts in sustainability, so they were kind of apprehensive to lean in and lead in our case, but they definitely wanted to support and make it successful. So engaging them early and deciding on their roles and responsibilities was critical. And then, the 3 areas that we decided to showcase for the Joint Commission were the energy use, so the fuel combustion, the purchased electricity, and then the anesthetic gases. And so throughout the rest of the agenda, after the executives spoke, we really managed that agenda to demonstrate how we're measuring and how we're improving and committed to those areas in particular. And we engaged other stakeholders. So now we narrowed that focus of those agenda sessions down to the subject matter experts. So we let the executives go after they did their talking, and then we really kind of got into the data analysis and all of the nitty gritty. And that worked out really well for us. So with that, I would suggest my last tip would be, we used the list of EPs that the Joint Commission offers on their website that are applicable to this certification. And we literally kind of like did that in an Excel sheet, and we put every document that we wanted to demonstrate to them in a column that aligned with the EP so that we knew we were covered on every single one of the expectations of the Joint Commission. So with that, Christina, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Terry. It was a fun process. Next up, we have Kyle from Hackensack.
Perfect. So thank you, Christina. And I'm lucky that everyone made this easy for me. They've hit most of the main points, but so HMH, we're 18 hospitals, a school of medicine. But what I've learned specifically through the Joint Commission process was we have 11 hospital IDs with the Joint Commission. So when we went for the certification, it really started when the Joint Commission announced that they were going to be coming out with this. We were a vocal supporter up front. As many of you may know, the Joint Commission took a lot of heat from the healthcare industry when they first announced this certification. And we put out a letter, I think one of 4 health systems that put out a letter publicly supporting it, thinking that these standards were going to be a good thing. So, when it was announced, a couple, actually 4 of our hospital presidents had each reached out to me individually, saying how they wanted to be the first hospital to get the certification. So that was a fun little situation to be in. So I just tossed it to regulatory, and they decided that they could do all 4, that we could go all 4 at once. I would say the biggest benefit, and it was a learning curve for me, was regulatory led this for us. And it was a learning curve for both sides. So, we went February 5th. That was our survey day. At the time, they didn't have a network option, but 4 hospitals, 4 of ours went at the same time. So I did a corporate presentation. I had all of the data for all of the hospitals, so I had our emissions data for all the hospitals in our network, but we only had really truly prepared the 4 sites with for purchased electricity, energy use, and anesthetic gases. So, it was a new experience for me. Our regulatory team, as they led this, we started doing weekly meetings in November. End of November, we were meeting every week, not knowing when the date was going to be. So we were kind of flying blind. We didn't have anybody that we could really speak to. So we, the biggest hurdle for us internally was, I think, having regulatory lead it was the best thing, because they're used to the Joint Commission. I've been through a couple surveys, at some of our hospitals with the life safety person, but our regulatory team, we went through the same protocol that the hospital goes through for any DSC or any of their individual certifications. And at first they beat me up pretty good, because our regulatory team expectation was that we had all this documentation and all of these different things. And in reality, all sustainability folks know, and most of the people doing this work know, I'm a team of me. So, I'm not all the minutes were perfect, and, not all, but, so, it took some learning, but, moving forward, the regulatory team, they've actually helped give us some structure. And I think that's what one of the best things of the certification is, it gave us some structure for all of our hospitals moving forward. So, with the regulatory leading this, and I'm going to say this a million times, that was, I think, as much as it drove me insane. And I really, if you asked me my opinion of the regulatory team for the first couple of weeks, it was not very positive. But they prepared us well, and I think that's why on the day of our certification, I mean, it went smooth. We flew through it. To Terry's point, we had the checklist. I mean, these surveys, it's a checklist. Whether or not you get the certification is whether or not you check off each box. So by over preparing, there's less challenge, there's less issues, because the Joint Commission, typically the second you start fumbling, or if you're not finding something, that's when they hone in on a different area to dig more. And we had everything. We had our hospital presidents from each of those sites was on. 2 of the hospitals presidents stayed on for most of the day, which was pretty crazy to think of. But they all did their own introduction. You know, I worked with one of our hospitals and we split it up. We kind of set a point person, but then we also had a point regulatory person that, you know, they would help field the question and they would just make sure the day goes smoothly. But you know, we went through those areas. We got the 4 hospitals certified on that day. And then once the network certification had come out, you know, we met with the Joint Commission because, you know, 4 of our 11 sites went through and we showed all the data. So we ended up getting the network certification, you know, retroactive to the day that the 4 individual sites go, because we had all that information. We had it there. And, you know, I think moving forward, so I mean, my main takeaway, regulatory, you know, it gives the chance for folks that they can help you as sustainability people, that can help provide you some structure. I mean, they're on all of our committees now, which is fun. So they always are the first ones to say approval of minutes, you know, which is something we never really had done with certain areas. But, you know, the regulatory piece was key. Our hospital presidents, you know, we're fortunate that, you know, they were very vocal in wanting to get this. And, you know, I would say another key aspect was we had an energy consultant that really, you know, our facilities folks, they know this, like they know the facilities, they know the life safety, but making PowerPoints is not something that they are all used to doing. And as 2 of the facilities folks told me 1,000 times, something that they hate doing. So our energy consultant just helped teach, you know, just help, you know, coach those folks through. But listen, they know their stuff. And at the end of the day, these life safety surveyors, facilities is their strength. You know, that's what they're engineers, they know it. So that's where most of the conversations occurred. But yeah, I think moving forward, obviously it's every 2-year process. So every 2 years, you get certified. So you have to go through that process. Hopefully it'll be much easier. But it was, all in all, I think I would encourage any hospital that hasn't do it, you should do it. Because not only does it validate everything that you're doing, but the more hospitals that pursue this, you know, you get to educate team members that aren't, you know, when I was presenting to different executive groups, you know, I was meeting physicians, especially that I'd never really worked with before, who were like, wow, you know, we didn't realize we were doing all this stuff. And just having this certification validates the work. But it also, I think, will help us moving forward in the hopes that, you know, we get more resources to do this work. You know, I think that's what I know. I've spoken to hundreds of hospitals since this has come out, and the ones that I know are a little hesitant, a lot of it's resources. You know, it's time intensive going through this, but you know, by getting this certification, you validate that the work's being done. You know, your leadership's happy because I'm sure they love any new accolade that they get or feather in their cap. So, you know, I really feel that this is something that we all have to embrace and really help drive forward. So I can keep going, Christina, if you tell me.
We do have a few questions coming in, so we can move on to questions. The first one's for you, Kyle, actually. So did you meet the strategic plan requirement at the system level or at the local hospital level?
Both. That was the least fun of this. So we were fortunate that, you know, we signed a 30 megawatt solar deal, energy as a service deal. As part of that assessment, originally that solar deal was going to be everything. We were going to, you know, have this energy efficiency, everything be under that. And this organization that we went with was going to be responsible for managing our power plants. In doing that, going through that process, we put together a detailed plan for energy moving forward for each individual hospital. So that was luck, a little bit of luck of the draw. So we had each hospital's strategic plan, but we did have an overarching corporate sustainability strategic plan. So I will mention we had 11, well, I guess if you can count corporate, 12 strategic plans, but they're all, same format. It's just plugging different information in. So yes, we had both.
Can you describe one of those strategic plans? Like what did the corporate one look like? Is this a multi-page, volume, or was it a fairly simple, straightforward document?
So it was, I would say our corporate one is probably around 10 or 11 pages. I think our plans are, comprehensive. So it's not just the 3 categories. So for the individual sites, what we did was we kind of pared it down and just had, for energy, we did include waste. We didn't include that as a metric because I already had 3 metrics. I wasn't going to kill myself with a 4th. But we had that information available. But yeah, I mean, the corporate one was actually a little bit more, extensive. The site one, it's just listing out, these are the initiatives that we've done. This is our short-term plan. This is our long-term plan. 3-4 pages max. And that was more to the point because, nobody needs the fluff of like, oh, this is why no, just show what you're doing. What's your plan moving forward? Yeah. And we tied kind of our performance improvement into that.
Great. So I have another question here from the audience. One of the Joint Commission's 6 area of focus has to do with the health system's vehicle fleet. I don't believe that any of you mentioned that. Was this an opportunity you considered? What was the thought process around the fleet's environmental footprint? And is this one of your long-term goals?
I can take that, Christina, to start with. So we have a pretty extensive fleet here. I think we have about 28 vehicles that are all gas powered. We have no electric. Our golf carts that we have are electric. However, obviously there's a financial outlay to move your vehicles to electric, but you also have to consider the infrastructure. And at our hospital, we don't have the infrastructure to have charging stations for the vehicles. And some of them are parked. Maybe they take them home. The employees might take them home because they're in home care. They might not have the charging. So it's really a quandary that I still struggle with from a supply chain standpoint and a facilities management is what we do with our fleet of vehicles. In California, they're going to go away by 2030, but it seems like they're losing traction in that way because people just don't know how to operationalize it. So we're still in the same situation and we're still buying gas vehicles.
I would throw in there, so we did not do transportation. And actually, I mean, I got beat up from regulatory and energy in the areas that we had a lot of stuff. If they saw transportation, I would have been a goner. That's something that from this exercise, I call it, we're building out a transportation plan. We didn't have anybody that owned fleet from the network perspective, nor at the hospital. I mean, it was random through the sites. So when you're talking about multiple hospitals presenting with nobody owning it, you have no idea what they're going to say, the people that you do find that know something. But our fleet, we have, 70, 80, 90 charging stations throughout our network. But no comprehensive plan because it does take a lot of money. Not the charging station that's up to $1,000, but the infrastructure aspect. So moving forward, I would say that transportation will be included because if you have the data, it's really really freaking simple. It's like your emissions were this year and they were this that year. But, you know, we have 650 vehicles, and, you know, we just created a transportation department 3 weeks ago, hired somebody. And so we're working through that now, but you got to have data. And I couldn't have told you where most of those vehicles are even located. So it's an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think if I could just add in that because there's 6 areas in the certification for you to choose from any system to choose from, you're enticed to like pick the top 3, like the 3 that you're really the best at. While we all might be working towards all 6 of them at different stages or different paces, really, because we only have to present 3 to the reviewer, we're really picking the 3 that demonstrate the most progress and see us in the best light. So for us, we didn't pick inhalers. Maybe that's something, you know, that your system is really, really strong in, and you would use that one instead of fleet vehicles or whatever. I think that's the beauty of part of this, is to choose your own adventure and do, you know, demonstrate your best performing areas.
And I'd echo what Terry and Kyle had said. I think the other key thing is that you need to have the data to support, right, what you're going to drive for your improvement work, right? So you want to make sure you have pre-data, baseline data, and then because 2 years from now, when you circle back around for recertification, you want to make sure that you're impacting that. So.
Great. So we have a data question, which is a nice segue into this question. How detailed were they when they went into the data? And can you elaborate on how the waste certification worked? How did you calculate the GHG emissions from each waste category?
That's why we didn't do waste the first go around from us. So yeah, somebody else can answer that one.
We did waste. So I worked closely with our plant services, our EVS team, and our dietary team as it pertained to all of the waste. I think right off the bat, I think, you know, our greenhouse gas inventory that Mazzetti had helped us with really does help us put everything in the right scope, really helps us identify areas of opportunity. And then we really worked closely, as Kelly had shared, from a vendor perspective with all of our vendors that are sourcing all of our recyclables and all of our waste. And really created, there's a tool on the Joint Commission's website. I think it's a recycling spreadsheet. I'd be happy if somebody's interested in that to share with you what we did from that perspective on how we calculated the tonnage and all of that stuff. So happy to share that if that's an avenue that somebody is going to go down on the waste perspective.
What about how deep they went into the data? How deep did the reviewer really get into the data for each of you?
I would say he did not. Our surveyor was obviously a virtual survey. So I think it took us about 4 hours to get through it from start to finish with breaks as we needed them. He didn't really get into our data. We submitted it. We were prepared for it because we had the greenhouse gas inventory with the different scopes that we had. We had, like Tina said, our waste stream. We had our electricity use. We had our water use, our gas. But he just wanted to see that we had data, but didn't ask us to validate it. Would you comment differently, Tina?
Well, and I think the other piece that we did is we proactively created graphs and charts and had that in our presentation. So I think they could see how we were measuring that. We wanted to make sure that we had 12 months worth of data going in. You didn't have to have 12 months worth of data as your benchmark, but we set 12 months as our benchmark for our data. And as I had said, we created, slides and graphs, and they really didn't go down too deeply into it. What they did do, though, is they wanted to know what our goal was, right? And so we had a benchmark and we wanted to achieve that. We wanted to go to X, right? So for recertification, they're definitely going to want to probably go down the data a little bit more. But initially, I don't think, like Kelly said, they didn't go too deep into, as far as our presentation, did not go too far into it.
Yeah, so, to add to that, there's two components. Either for this initial one, you can show 6 months of data, your baseline data, like show your 6 months, or the 2 years, showing the reduction. So we had, we had all of our data ready. They did not dig, like they didn't look. I mean, what are they going to go like look through all of our utility? It's a lot of information. They asked us what was our process for collecting the data, who verified the data, and how do you hold folks accountable as it pertains to data. We had all of that information. We laid it out under the measurement EP that they had. So, I think as long as you demonstrate a reduction and you have supporting documentation, it's they didn't go too deep, but we were also, I mean, none of those surveyors, that was their first time, all four of them. So, it was a learning. We kind of got through the day together, which was nice.
Yeah, and just to top that off, I would agree. All of our discussion with the surveyor was driven by slides in PowerPoint that we presented. They didn't ask for supporting Excel sheets. We never gave them any. And it was all summarized according to what we thought the talking points would be. So.
All right, following up on the waste topic, did you focus on medical waste in addition to municipal waste? Do you track GHGs for medical waste and set reduction targets? That'd be for all of you, since I know you're all measuring your waste and your GHGs.
We do. We have that, and to be honest, medical waste was the main. We did talk about waste with our reviewer. It wasn't the official category, but we talked about it, and we really illustrated the medical waste reduction, because that's where most of our progress has been around RMW. I mean, we're RMW, we're around 4% for each of the hospitals, as it pertains to all waste streams. So 4% RMW, and then we talked about more upstream reduction. Whether it's OR kit reformulation, reprocessing, different ways we've cut waste to begin with, and we had the GHG information. But for our challenge was, we tackled medical waste like 10 years ago, where we made most of our progress. So they like to see year over year, and you get to a point where the amount of time that you're going to put in to make the arm go down, like you got to evaluate how you use your resources. So that was another challenge for us, is our narrative around waste to date and moving forward. We're figuring that out.
And I'll just say, from Stanford Healthcare's perspective, we are measuring all of those waste streams in terms of greenhouse gas reductions, but we're really focusing on landfill diversion, landfill and incineration diversion as the metric and point of action. So we don't discuss it in greenhouse gas emissions language when it comes to waste as much as we do some of the other categories available.
Great. We have another question. Are there any other sustainability certifications that the hospitals complete, like Practice Green Health? If so, how do you manage the work needed to complete multiple certifications?
Yeah, so we fill out each of our hospitals. Whether we do this moving forward, to be determined, but all of our hospitals fill out Practice Green Health, and for this, all of our hospitals went through the exercise for the Joint Commission. Only 4 had in-depth presentations prepared, but every site, we went through this. But yeah, managing that, I don't know a sustainable solution moving forward. we did
Yeah,
it all.
we try as much as we can to get the practice greenhouse application data aligned with our greenhouse gas inventory data and, you know, now this certification data. So we are trying to align all of those efforts. But sustainability is so big and there are so many data sources for this work that it's not a light lift to do all that.
Yeah, and you know, that's something that we made a decision, you know, like all the different CDP, all these reporting you know, fortunately we don't have to do that, and nor would I. You know, you come up with, do you want to get the work done, or do you want to fill out 1 million applications and 1 million reports that, let's face it, most of those reports, it doesn't irrelevant to us in certain ways. So yeah, that'll be something that everyone will have to figure out kind of as we go. But the Joint Commission certification, that's the gold standard for this work. And practice greenhouse award application is a great stepping stone to it.
Yeah, it really helps a lot of our clients assess where they are and track their progress year over year, especially in beginning and intermediate stages. It's really useful as a tool for gauging your practices effectiveness. All right. I have one quick question I can answer for the group. How often do you need to recertify? This is a 2-year certification, so it's every other year that you go through this process. Unless there's a follow-up question to that you'd like to put in there, I think that's a pretty straightforward one. We have another question. Were there any gaps that each of you identified and addressed prior to pursuing certification? For example, incorporating sustainability into the organization's strategic plan?
We did. So everything for us came together really towards the end of last year. We tied emissions to executive compensation, which I wouldn't say that was a result of the Joint Commission certification, but having that, it's really tough to argue when you say, hey, my CEO's pay is tied to this work. So we're doing something, or I wouldn't be here. But we did tweak the language of our strategic priorities with environmental sustainability being more explicitly stated. So, you know, we have our 7 or 8 strategic priorities, I believe 7 now, and sustainability is specifically in that overview section, whereas before you would have to, it was one of the subsections. Now it's its own piece, along with health equity, SDOH, and all that.
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier, but we have been over the last few years integrating sustainability into all of our strategic planning documents. So when this certification became available, it was literally kind of validating that the organization is moving in the right direction, because the Joint Commission is clearly signaling that this is our future. And so, you know, you have to work both sides. You have to use the certification to leverage to get more resources, and you need to work your internal resources to demonstrate for the certification. So the two kind of go hand in hand.
Well, the one thing we did, Terry, was we did articulate the strategic plan for sustainability for the department as part of the certification process, because Stanford had a strategic energy management plan, but didn't have the rest of that piece of that puzzle. So that was something that I know you guys did as part of the certification process.
Yes, yes. To speak to Kyle's point earlier about that operational plan, we also created one for the purposes of this certification.
And we did as well. I think one of the things that we have is we have that the sustainability operations plan, energy and sustainability operations plan, and then we did layer an additional energy management plan, because that's going to be a key component with us going forward. So those are the two strategic documents that we did. And then all of with an appendix of all of our goal and improvement work that we're going to continue to do as we move forward. So, so that will roll up to our board of trustees for review and then to add or adjust as needed.
I would add to what Tina just said. I think it's important, if I look back and say, well, what lesson did I learn from this process? One, I learned a heck of a lot about greenhouse gases thanks to Mazzetti. So nowhere from an expert, but definitely know where we need to go and what our opportunities are. But getting that throughout your organization has been a little bit of a struggle. So it's up to all of us as leaders to take the lead in that and ask the questions. Like, so when we're looking at surgical products, and is there a reprocessable, is there a reusable device that we can use? And so we've started this with our staff and our medical staff and also our executives. So when we sit in board meetings and talk about potential new buildings, I know Terry talked about that and how you're incorporating that into your building. It's really something that we need to continue to advocate for, and it is more expensive to build greener buildings. It just is, but we need to do it. So I think just being leaders and getting in front of that is advice I would give.
Great. Well, I want to just thank our panelists and all of you who attended and asked such great questions. Thank you for that. Please join us again next month for the session Medical Equipment and Overlooked Opportunity for Energy Savings, and that'll be on the 20th of August at 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern. And Troy's going to put the registration link in the chat, so you can go ahead and register for that at any time. With that, we'll adjourn until next month. Thank you all.